Hi there, I'm Linda and this is Huttons Valley Permaculture. It's the end of March here and according to my local community gardens group, it's the perfect time to be planting onions. Today I'm going to clear an onion bed and get the seeds into the ground. I'll also be harvesting some old onion greens and heading to the kitchen to turn them into a flavourful onion salt. My corn and bean bed is long since finished. There is a bit of nasturtium growing up, but I can clear this area and it's going to be perfect for growing my onions. I'll be sending all of this off to the compost. That's the beautiful painted mountain corn. This one looks like the mould's getting to it and some of them might even be sprouting. It's just been out here too long. So I think that one's definitely headed for chickens. Hi guys. I'm not going to dig up any of those roots because that will just disturb the soil too much. There's one the mice and the birds have got too. But now we've got to get the nasturtium out. I am going to just cut it at the base, so the roots are all left in the soil, because then that will continue to feed the soil organisms. Okay, and that'll be perfect in my compost as well. So that's my bed nearly cleared up. I'm going to cut these down as much as possible and then clear the weeds, but there's really not too many weeds. We've had quite a bit of compost on top and there's still a good compost layer, so I won't have to dress this too much, although I am going to add just a little bit of mushroom compost on top so that I can drill the onion seeds in nice and easily and they won't get lost. I'm always fascinated with the little creatures that you come across in the garden. Look at this little guy. He's heading off to a new home now that I've ruined this one for him. But he'll be fine in that corn patch. I'm just doing a trial corn patch. This painted mountain corn, which you can use for popcorn or for flour, probably polenta, is a cool season corn. So I thought I'd just do another round. It was a late summer planting, which hopefully I'll be able to harvest some cobs late autumn. That I can throw to the chickens. Change of plans with the nasturtium. Not going to the compost now, headed for the chickens. Pretty happy with that. I'll be able to move some compost onto the top of that now. And this lot is just going to go to the compost. And we'll deal with that lot later. I've had to get some mushroom compost from my local garden supply centre because my compost has kind of run out. I generally make my compost during autumn when there's lots of deciduous leaves available for the carbon. So while I'm still just developing my gardens, I'm happy to get in a load of compost just to make things a lot easier and I can still keep moving forward. Because it's a no-dig bed, it's actually okay to walk on it because you're not compacting the soil because you haven't dug it over. This compost is pretty hot still, but I'm going to be putting it in a fairly thin layer just over the top of my bed, so I don't think the freshness of it will impact. Okay, well, I'm pretty happy with my garden now. I'm going to get some water onto it and bed this down a little bit, and it might take some of this heat out of the compost as well. It feels quite warm, so I don't want to be putting my seeds into it while it's really this hot. But if I water it down, that should cool it down. And I think given that it's not a very deep layer, I think it won't keep composting, but it'll just form the mulch layer on this bed. Okay, that will probably do it now. While this garden's settling down, let's go and grab some seeds. In the wild area of my vegetable garden, I've got a few rows of onions that actually went to seed. They didn't form bulbs. Now, I'm not great at growing onion at this point, and I might have just planted them at the wrong time. But sometimes I think the weather doesn't help. It's hot, then cold, then hot, then cold. And these plants are biennial. And in the second sort of hot-cold cycle, I think that's when they go to seed. So I think maybe that's what's happened to these guys. But anyway, I'm not going to waste them. I'm going to harvest these seeds and plant them in this garden. And really, it's as simple as taking that off and shaking it into a bucket. And you can see all the little seeds at the bottom are ready to be planted. So I'll just grab a few more and we'll get back to planting. The drier they are, the easier the seeds will come out. You can kind of scrunch them up a bit too. And look at all that. Okay, I think there's probably enough seeds now. Now that I've got my seeds all ready, I'm just going to mark out my rows, and the rows should be sort of around 20 centimetres apart. So I think in this bed I should be able to get 4 rows. So I'm just going to firm it down with my feet. Yeah, about there. You should be able to squeeze one on here. Now that's not perfectly tamped down by any means, but I think it'll be fine. Now that I've got my rows all marked, I'm just going to run the onion seeds down each row. And I've got here some worm castings that I'm just going to sprinkle over the top of the seeds. And I think that should germinate them really well. I'm going to try and just thinly put them in, and then once they germinate you can thin them out at that point. Okay, so it's just a really thin layer of these worm castings over the top, and then I'm just going to tamp it down a bit, make sure those seeds don't wash away in the next rain. I have got a video showing how I make these worm castings, so I'll leave a link to that video. The worm castings also sort of help mark where you've put these little seeds, because it's, once they're on the ground, it's really hard to tell. Okay, that's my seeds in the ground now. I'm not going to water it again because the mushroom compost is really moist, so I think that's all it will need. Now that my onions are in the ground, I'm going to head over to where we gathered the onion seeds from and grab some onion greens and take them to the kitchen to make some onion salt. We've taken most of the seed heads from these plants, which just leaves all of these lovely greens. They still are full of flavour and just perfect for this recipe I'm going to show you. I've got 1 brown onion cut into quarters, 5 cloves of garlic and around 20 grams of chives, 300 grams of onion greens which have all been cleaned and washed. All we do now is add them to the food processor, roughly chopping the chives and greens. Whiz it all up until it's a nice green paste. Evenly distribute your mixture across your sheets and just spread it out. Now that all the mixture is spread out onto the dehydrated sheets, I'm going to get that into the dehydrator. My onions have been dehydrating for the 6 hours now, so they're really dry. All we need to do now is whiz them up. I find putting them onto a big sheet like this makes it easy to get it into your food processor, and you don't kind of drop so much around the place. You just need to mix that up into a powder now. Now, sometimes I just put a cover over it because you do get a lot of powder coming out, and I'll wait a little while before I open that up. Now, the other ingredients we need is 200 grams of salt. A sea salt is good. And in here I've got 2 tablespoons of a seaweed. Dulse flakes are good and what I prefer to get, but sometimes I can't get it. So today I'm just adding some sea vegetable. They're a bit too large for the salt, so I do whiz it up into a little spice mixture, and it gets it a lot finer, which is better for a salt. Lots of powder comes out. That's all the onion all whizzed up. So we just need to add these other 2 ingredients and virtually just stir it in. So just a bit more of a whiz and we are done. So once again, back onto your silicone sheet or a bit of baking paper or something just to make this easier. Then just into a really dry jar. Now I find onion salt is a great flavouring for any dishes. I like to use it to season meats before I grill them. I use it on top of eggs or anywhere you want that little onion flavour. And the seaweed just adds to the nutrient value of your salt. So it really ups the nutrition. Okay, so that's a really great way to use up some of those old onions that might be growing in your garden. So give that a try. You'll find it's really delicious. I am a bit worried about the birds digging this all up, so I'm going to cover it over. It's one of the reasons that I like to plant onions on their own rather than in one of my favourite diverse beds, because you need to nurture these little seeds along as they germinate. It's a bit like your carrot bed. Just kind of get them going and then they're good. So that should keep the birds off, and I'll keep that moist until those seedlings germinate and start to show. Well, it's great to have got my onions in the ground and another batch of onion salt in the pantry. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. Thanks so much for watching, and bye for now.